All right. So it is great pleasure for me to turn this over to our speaker, Dr. Elissa Weeden.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Elissa Weeden, and welcome to InfoCon 23, the future of information science. And I see the future of information science hopefully focusing on accessibility everywhere. And so that's going to be the topic of our session today, the importance of accessibility in information science and related degree programs. Again, I am Elissa Weeden. I am a white woman in my early 50s, early 50s. I got a few strands of gray hair mixed with my brown, curly, wavy hair. I call them strands of wisdom. I do wear glasses, and today I am wearing a uh, fuchsia magenta striped shirt. So it is a pleasure to be with all of you today. As mentioned, I am an associate professor at the School of Information at Rochester Institute of Technology. My email is included on the title slide. I also have it included on the last slide in case you'd like to continue discussions with me after this session. Again, thank you, Betty, for putting the links to the presentation into the chat, as well as a link to a shared Google Doc. So we're going to make this interactive. So as I go through the presentation today, my challenge question for you, completely optional, but if you choose to accept the challenge, is as I'm giving the presentation to think about what am I doing that is making this presentation accessible in the design of the slides, in what is being done via Zoom, the words that I am saying, how I'm delivering the presentation, what is being done to increase the accessibility of this presentation. So there is a Google Doc, and I see that some writing is starting to happen. So that can be a repository where we can memorialize all of the ideas. And so feel free to add to that throughout the conversation, throughout the session, if you notice that I've done something that in your mind increases the accessibility of this presentation. And then we'll take some time at the end of the presentation to go through the list of observations. So the agenda for this presentation, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, where I fit in into the Rochester Institute of Technology. I'll be using the acronym RIT just to shorten up the name a little bit. I'll talk about the courses that I teach at RIT, as well as my research interest and some current projects and grants that I am working on. And then we're going to dive into the main event, which is going to be talking about accessibility everywhere and how we would like accessibility to be everywhere, but unfortunately it isn't. And so we're going to explore some of the reasons why accessibility is not in the forefront where it should be. And then we're going to talk about the importance of accessibility to information science and other related degree programs. And then we're going to talk about, hopefully, I'll do a little bit of show and tell of some assistive technology devices that I have. And then stress that the tools that are out there that can promote and increase accessibility is not necessarily a replacement for you. That having each of you and having everybody have accessibility as a priority is important and necessary. And then finally, we'll do a discussion of the challenge question. And then if any of you have any questions at the end, we can address those as well. If you have questions during the presentation, please don't hesitate to add them to the chat. I am able to see that, but if I miss it, then Betty will let me know that there is a question. So let's move on to slide 4. So a little bit about me. So I have my undergraduate degree in information technology from RIT. I then went out and worked in industry for a little bit and then came back to RIT for my master's in software development and management. So you can kind of think of that as software engineering, but I did it before software engineering was the the term that was settled on. And then as I was a faculty member at RIT, I did return to school to complete my PhD in computing technology in education from Nova Southeastern University. I've been an associate professor at RIT. I've been at RIT for 25 years as a faculty member, more if you consider a student. Um, so I've been through lots of changes that have gone on. The growth of the campus has been amazing. So Rochester Institute of Technology is located in Rochester, New York. We have about 17,500 undergraduate students and approximately 3,000 graduate students. We are also the home to the National Technical Institute for the Deaf. And so accessibility is definitely a priority on campus. It is expected that in many classrooms you will see ASL interpreters. You will also have real time captionists. Uh, Providing support as well as student note takers. So we are very lucky to have NTID on campus. Um, RIT is composed of several colleges, one of which is the Golisano College of Computing and Information Sciences. We make up about a quarter of the institute as far as student enrollment. We have approximately 4,200 undergraduate students spread across 8 Bachelor of Science degree programs. We also have about 960 graduate students spread across 9 Master of Science degree programs and 1 PhD program. Within the computing college, we have a series of departments and schools. I am a faculty member in the School of Information, and the School of Information has approximately 420 undergraduate students. We have 3 Bachelor of Science degree programs that we offer. The first in computing and information technologies, the second in human centered computing, and the third in web and mobile computing. We also have approximately 300 graduate students spread across 5 Master of Science degree programs. We have degree programs in artificial intelligence, data science, health informatics, human computer interaction, and information technology and analytics. Moving on to slide 5. The courses that I teach, we have a broad curriculum that is focused on accessibility. So the first course that I teach is called Design for Accessibility, and that goes into principles of universal design. Universal design approaches the creation of things from the perspective of instead of designing for a particular population, design for everyone, and good design benefits everybody, regardless of whether they are non disabled or have a disability. I also talk about web accessibility, and we go through guidelines to support that. We also talk about regulations, guidelines, and standards for accessibility. Second course I teach is part of a concentration. The concentration consists of 3 courses, the first being Access and Assistive Technology. So we cover assistive technologies, primarily devices and softwares that individuals can use to help them perform a task that they otherwise might not able to perform. And so we focus on assistive technologies related to auditory, cognition, mobility, and vision. We also offer a course in accessibility through the lifespan. So that's from birth all the way to death. We cover the full lifespan. I'm not sure why my frozen trailer is coming up here, but let me see if I can. There we go. It went away on its own. So we cover the full lifespan and talk about how accessibility can change as an individual goes through the lifespan. And we focus on accessibility in education, employment, and also through the aging process. And then the final accessibility course that I teach is research and accessibility. And this is where students get exposure to the current research that is happening within accessibility. So we talk about some of the major conferences and journals that research related to accessibility gets disseminated through. We talk about the scholarly publication and peer review process, as well as guidelines for how to write about accessibility and disability in an appropriate manner. And then students get experience in giving conference style presentations, as well as organizing and conducting a literature survey. So my research interests primarily accessibility and computing education. So some recent research that I've done focused on assistive technologies in social media avatars. So for some social media platforms, users are able to create an avatar that is a visual representation of themselves. And so my former research assistant and I conducted a questionnaire survey to assess whether or not individuals with various disabilities would like to include their assistive technologies as part of their social media avatars. My latest set of research projects that I'm looking to spin up are focused on the use of generative AI to support college students in the writing process. So, generative AI to support students whose English is not their first language, but yet they are expected to write in English. How can generative AI like ChatGPT be used to support English as a second language student? And then I'm also looking to explore generative artificial intelligence as an assistive technology for students who are deaf or hard of hearing, as well as for college students who are neurodivergent. I'm also a co-PI on a grant that's exploring the use of smart glasses to convey real-time ASL interpretation and real-time captioning to students. And then for computing education, I'm co-PI on a grant called Engage, Enhancing Growth Mindset Academic Experiences. And that grant focuses on infusing growth mindset. So we all have two mindsets inside of us, a growth mindset, which says that with additional work and practice and effort, that you can enhance your knowledge and skills, versus a versus a fixed mindset, which posits that your abilities are fixed at birth. And so, if you've often found yourself saying statements like, oh, I'm never going to be good at art or I'm horrible at math, that reflects a fixed mindset. And so, we're trying to infuse and encourage our students and faculty to have a growth mindset when approaching computing. So that's that in a nutshell. Now to the main the main event, why you're all here. Accessibility everywhere. So accessibility removes barriers that exist to foster inclusion so that everybody may be able to participate. And when we talk about accessibility, we can talk about physical environments, so multi story buildings having elevators for individuals who may be unable to utilize stairs to get from one floor to another. But we also have the digital aspect, which is the focus of a lot of information science degree programs. And so making sure that digital environments and digital products are able to be effectively used by everyone and thereby reducing the barriers to participation and engagement in those environments and projects. So that's the context in which we're talking about accessibility. So why should accessibility be everywhere? I posed this topic of accessibility everywhere. Why should it be everywhere? Because nobody likes to be excluded. I'm sure we can all remember an experience in our lives where we have been excluded. And the reason why we are excluded could vary. But being excluded, no one wants to be excluded. And so we want to remove those barriers so that everybody is able to participate. But unfortunately, accessibility is not everywhere. And so, both in physical environments and in digital environments, we have people that are being excluded on a daily basis. Elliot, I do see your comment in chat. I'll circle back around to that, okay? And if I don't, Betty, let me know. So we have people that are being excluded. And so exclusion can be based on either a permanent disability. So, if, let's say, for example, I was in an accident and my arm had to be amputated, that would be considered a permanent disability. A disability could also be temporary. I fall down, I break my leg is in a cast, but it's expected to heal and I'll be able to use my leg again. So that would be an example of a temporary disability. Disability can also be situational. Let's say that I'm with my family in a crowded restaurant and there's TVs around the restaurant, but I'm unable to hear what is on the TV because of the loud environment of the restaurant. So that would be considered a situational disability. When we talk about digital exclusion, there can be many ways in which an individual might be excluded in digital environments or interactions. And so I've listed a few of those on slide 7. So one way is that there's not sufficient contrast. So you have the background color. So in this case, the background of my slide is white. And then you have your foreground color. And so the foreground of my text, I'm using black and I'm using a shade of blue. Don't ask me to describe the shade of blue, maybe a periwinkle. In either event, that contrast may not be sufficient enough for an individual to be able to effectively read the text that may be on a page. And so that's problematic. The text could also be too small to read. And so, although there are applications that can magnify what appears on a computer screen, the size of the text could still be problematic. Also, when you consider videos, videos that don't include subtitles or captions, and so that would be prohibitive to individuals with a hearing loss. They might not be able to access the content that is in a video if it's only presented in an auditory fashion. Likewise, a video that doesn't include audio descriptions of visual content. And this is something now, many of us may have experienced captions before. So you can turn on captions when you watch a TV show or a movie on Netflix. And that can be helpful to everyone, even individuals without hearing loss. But what we tend not to see in the mainstream yet are audio descriptions that are included. So I want to show an example of an audio description. So I'm going to switch over to YouTube. I'll go full screen. And what I have here is a movie trailer for the movie Frozen that includes audio description. And so let me turn on the captions. And as the video plays, you will notice that there are descriptions of what is happening visually in the movie trailer. So this is 1 minute and 31 seconds. It's short enough that I'll play the whole clip. All right, let me start this.
From the creators of Tangled and Wreck-It Ralph.
I just want to verify, is the audio coming through online? Are you able to hear the audio?
I am.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Here we go.
Disney. A carrot-nosed, coal-eyed snowman shuffles up to a purple flower peeping out of deep snow.
Ooh, hello.
He takes a deep sniff. His nose lands on a frozen pond. A reindeer looks up and pants like a dog. Seeing the reindeer slip on the ice, the snowman smiles and moves towards him, though actually he's running on the spot. The reindeer falls on his chin. The snowman uses his arm as a crutch. The reindeer paddles his front legs. Head over heels, the snowman crawls along the ice. The reindeer does the breaststroke. The snowman rolls his body, but flips onto his back. The reindeer's tongue sticks to the ice. The snowman held his head. Twig arm and reindeer lips tug at the carrot. The carrot flies off and lands in soft snow. The reindeer goes after it with Snowman and his body parts hanging on his tail. The snowman puts himself back together again and glumly contemplates his noseless state. The reindeer jams the carrot back in place and pants like a proud puppy. The snowman pats him with his stick-thin arm, then goes to sneeze. He grabs his nose with both hands. His head shoots off. Frozen, coming this winter, in 3D.
So there we saw an example of audio description. So if an individual was unable to visually process or perceive the visual content of that trailer, there was audio that would provide a description of what was included. So that is an example of audio description. Let me just go back to the slides here. And so if you had a video that was shown without visual descriptions, then you might be excluding some viewers. Also, if you have a image on a web page that does not include sufficient alternative text. So alternative text would be text that could be read or would be spoken by the computer if you were using a screen reader that would speak the alternative text if an individual was unable to visually process the image. So if you have an image on a web page that does not have alternative text, then a viewer who is unable to process that image would not receive that content. So alternative text is very important towards increasing accessibility. Likewise, if you had a digital interface where the button was too small, if you had a user that had tremors where their hands may shake, it might be hard for that individual to target a button if the size of the button was not sufficient. So these are just a few examples of ways that individuals can be excluded in digital environments. So when we consider, well, if exclusion is bad and nobody wants to be excluded and accessibility increases inclusion, then why isn't accessibility everywhere? Why don't we have captions on every single video? Why don't we have audio descriptions on videos? Why don't we have every image that's on the internet that is not purely decorative? Why does it not have alternative text? And there's lots of reasons why accessibility is not everywhere. A lot of it is a lack of awareness. If an individual is not faced with a barrier, then the fact that that barrier may exist for others might not even go on the radar screen of that individual. And so, um, just a pure lack of awareness. If there's no coverage of accessibility in degree programs that are focused on computing, where students are expected to create and generate content or artifacts or products, and there's no curriculum that exposes students to barriers that exist when computing, then there's no way to expect them to then be able to design products that are going to be accessible. There's also increased costs that are involved that some organizations, for whatever reason, feel that those costs aren't worth incurring in order to make their product accessible. So, a potential example, if you think of TikTok. So, TikTok is a platform where users can post up recorded videos or they can post live sessions. Those live sessions are not captioned. And so, if you have a deaf or hard of hearing individual, those live sessions are completely inaccessible. And so, are there things that TikTok could do to increase the accessibility of their platform? Absolutely. Why are they not doing it? I don't know. One reason could be that there's increased costs that would be involved in modifying their platform to make it more accessible. There could also be inadequate legal regulations or enforcement of regulations. So in the United States, we have the Americans with Disabilities Act that provides protections for disabled individuals and consequences that could occur if organizations, companies, employers do not provide access to individuals. And so, but again, that may not exist everywhere. And even in the United States, with legislation to support disabled individuals, there is still organizations and businesses that violate the Americans with Disabilities Act. Another reason, a perceived lack of demand. People might not understand exactly how many individuals would use accessibility features if they were included. So again, if we consider subtitles and captioning, I am not deaf or hard of hearing. My sons are not deaf or hard of hearing, but when they were younger, I would always have the captions turned on. In fact, I still have them turned on now because they can be loud and that prevents me from being able to hear the TV. And so the subtitles or the captions help with that. When they were little, I had the captions turned on to programs that they watched. So not only were they hearing the content, but it was also exposing them to the words, helping them develop their reading skills. So again, by making things accessible, it not only helps individuals who need that access, but it can be uh, helpful to everyone. Another reason could deal with cultural attitudes towards disability. There are several models of disability. I just have 3 included on slide 8. The first is a charity or a tragedy model of disability where individuals with a disability, that it's a tragedy that they are disabled and that they need essentially help and support in order to function, which is a very limited and negative view of disability. The medical model focuses on symptoms and management, treatments and management of symptoms. The social model of disability proposes that disability is a social construct. It is because the environment, again, whether digital or physical environment, was designed in such a way that barriers exist. And so any disability is a result of barriers that exist in society. All right, so all of you are interested in information science or a related degree program. And so no matter which program you decide to pursue, you're going to be creating things. You're going to be giving presentations, you're going to be writing papers, you may be creating websites, applications, devices. Who knows what you're going to be able to create and put out into the world. And so you have a choice. You have a choice of whether or not you want to make those creations accessible to everyone. So accessibility doesn't just magically happen. It has to be a choice. There has to be effort put in to making things accessible and inclusive to everyone. And so accessibility has to be in the mindset from the very start. Oftentimes, for software development projects, accessibility is an afterthought. The product's gone through the development, the design and the development and implementation, and then they assess, is it accessible? And then they go back, and if there's problems, they go back and they try to fix it, versus considering accessibility in the project ideation, design, all the way through the entire life cycle of a project. And so things to consider. I don't have time today. This is the content of an entire course, but talking about universal design. So I included a link in slide 9, and that link takes you to a poster that summarizes the 7 principles of universal design. Now, a lot of these principles are geared towards the physical environment, but many of them can be translated to digital environments as well. Another thing to consider is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And so on slide 9, I have a link to that as well. Now, these guidelines, in my opinion, are not the most readable. It takes a lot of mental processing, at least on my part, to be able to read and understand all of the nuances of these guidelines. But they go through what needs to be done to make web content accessible. And so this is a document that continues to evolve. Recent iterations of this document have expanded from not only web content, but to content that is viewable on mobile devices as well. And then to consider some computer-related assistive technologies, some devices that or software that users may use in order to process what it is that you create. So there are some alternative input devices. So I'll show you a few. We have switches and eye tracker and speech recognition software. So let me switch over to my document camera. I have a couple switches here, and we're going to play a little Price is Right game. So here's an example of a switch. This is a 2-button switch that could be programmed. So for example, if a user is interacting with a web page, the white or left side of the switch could be the equivalent of tabbing through the site. And then the orange or the right-hand side of the switch, if pressed, could be the equivalent of pressing enter. So guesses in chat. And let me make note. Betty, can you make note of the questions? Because the questions are going to fly by here in a second.
There's just 2 comments, like a statement, just to share their thoughts. And the only question so far is Elia's that we would address later.
Okay, let me read the comments first so that feel free to type. Okay, I got Elliot's question. Katie. Exactly. If only sellers, producers realized their buyer consumer base would be expanded by making things accessible. Yes, it's in their benefit monetarily to make things accessible, yet they still don't. Tamiko in chat, like reading the Chicago Manual of Style. It's a good reference book, but it can be hard to go through it page by page. Absolutely. The same with the APA, the American Psychological Association Style Guide as well. All right. So I'm caught up with chat. Now we're going to play Price is Right. So this device, let's see, it's about 6.5 inches long and about 2.75 inches wide. Again, 2 buttons. How much do you think this costs? Pop it in chat.
300.
Got 300. Any other
400,
guesses?
200.
200. $20. All right, so this device costs $220. That was purchased in 2021, so it is a couple of years old. The next device is an eye tracker. Actually, before that, let me show you a couple of other switches. These switches, yes, Jennifer wins. Thank you, Ryan. These next switches are for the Xbox. So what I have here is an Xbox adaptive controller. And so you can take a traditional Xbox controller, and instead of using that, you could use this adaptive controller. There are ports on the back that map to different controller functionalities, and you can plug in various switches. So in addition to the controller, I have a Xbox adaptive gaming kit, and here's a few examples of the switches included with that. This may be hard to see, but there's a big press button, a smaller press button, and then a pedal, a large pedal that can be pushed down, and then a small pedal that can be pushed down. And again, depending on the functionality, you can remap by plugging in the switch to the back. All right, guessing game again. Now remember, this is mainstream technology for an Xbox. The adaptive controller, how much do you think it costs? $50, 500, 180, 175. Let me look at my box. All right. $99.99. Again, because they're marketing this towards the mainstream. You could go to Target or a retail store and pick up one of these devices. The adaptive gaming kit is also, I believe it's the same price. Let me find the price. Yes, $99.99. Now let's look at an eye tracker. This is more specialized. So this eye tracker could go at the intersection of my laptop screen and keyboard. And there are sensors in the device that would track where I am looking on the screen. And so I could use this device to move my cursor on my computer screen. And if I hover my gaze or fix my gaze on an element, it could select it. So this device, how much do you think this costs? Pop it in chat. $100, $200, $450. This is not necessarily mainstream technology. We have $120. This device cost $1,249 back in 2001. So again, devices that are not mainstreamed have a premium attached to them. Alternative output devices. So a screen reader. Now you have screen readers that are built in. Here, let me get the. You have screen readers that are built in to Windows, so Narrator is included. If you have an Apple product, then VoiceOver is a screen reader that's included. There are also third-party screen readers such as NVDA, which is free, and JAWS, which is not free. Jennifer and Chad, I wonder if health insurance would cover some of these. It depends. It depends on the insurance. Maybe, maybe not. It would be something that would need to be pursued. Screen magnifiers and Braille displays. So I have a Braille display here. Let me show you that. So here's a Braille display. It is, let's see, about 6.5 inches long and about 4.25 inches wide. This device could be used by an individual to code in Braille using the 6 buttons at the top. At the bottom of the device, there's a series of cells, and each cell has 8 pins inside the cell that will raise and lower. So I'm going to turn the device on. Maybe I'm going to turn the device on. There we go. And so you may see that the pins raised and lowered. And so you could take the textual content that's on a computer screen, and it could be, if this device was connected either via USB or Bluetooth, the text from the screen could be translated to Braille and it would appear on the device. All right, so this is a very specialized device. How much do you think it costs? Pop it in chat.
Tamika put a little statement in there too.
Yes. Yes, so Ryan's added that sometimes the Office of Vocational Rehab might help. Yes, that is true. And Tamiko, the Job Accommodation Network is great for finding help and resources as well. Excellent. Thank you for including that. So we have 1,500, 800, 600, and because of time, it is $699. This is one of the cheapest ones that I found. A lot of them can be well over $1,000 or multiple thousands of dollars.
Jennifer wins again.
Jennifer's on a roll. Of course, yes, she's going to the Showcase Showdown and buy a lottery ticket tonight. There we go. There are also accessibility tools that can be used. So YouTube includes auto-generated captions, and certain applications such as Microsoft Word and PowerPoint have accessibility checkers that you can utilize, but nothing replaces you. So these tools, they can check, for example, does an image have alternative text? But what they cannot check is whether or not that alternative text is appropriate and sufficient. So nothing replaces a person. We need professionals that are educated in accessibility, especially digital accessibility, so that these barriers can be removed, so that digital content can be accessible to everyone and no one is excluded. So some sample careers related to accessibility could be a UI UX designer or developer, a usability specialist, mobile app designer, or a user experience researcher. All right, now to our activity. Let me bring over the Google Doc.
I will put the link one more time in the chat box, so it's at the bottom.
Sure, and let's see what we have here. So we have closed captioning was turned on. I did a physical description of myself. Slide decks provided at the beginning of the presentation, yes, so people could access them on their own device if they wanted to. Slide design was minimal, easy to read, good color choices, sufficient contrast. Slide design is largely text, allowing text to speech applications to be used. I gave an agenda early on so that everybody knew what to expect during the presentation. There wouldn't be any surprises. And I spoke clearly and at a slow pace. The level of the headings followed a logical order and best practices. And I let the audience know what slide I was on by announcing the slide number for those who were following along on their own. All right, so what I thought I did, let me remove this box here on slide 11. So in Zoom, subtitles were enabled. The session's recorded. So if people wanted to listen or watch the session again, that option is available. The design, and then the presentation comments. So we got the description. I presented the challenge question at the start, so that helped with focus. Maybe you noticed that you were paying a little bit more attention because the challenge question was out there than what you might have normally done. The agenda, I established acronyms too. So instead of just talking about RIT right away, I established that it was the Rochester Institute of Technology and that I was going to be referring to it as RIT. And then as I was showing the devices, I provided descriptions of the devices. All right, and with that, thank you for your time. Does anyone have any questions? Now, I have not forgotten about Elliot. So Elliot had the question of journals and publications. So the premier conferences related to accessibility is the ASSETS conference, ASSETS. That was just held a couple of weeks ago. And it is a conference through the Association of Computing Machinery, or ACM. Another big conference is CHI, C-H-I. That conference is focused on computer-human interaction, but there is an accessibility track to that. As far as journals, there's TOCHI, Transactions on Computer-Human Interaction, that has an accessibility component as well. So the Association for Computing Machinery, ACM, tends to have the most accessibility related conferences and journals.
It's a
Let's
question
see.
from Ryan.
From Ryan.
I
I can probably try to look this up myself, but do you know if the ALA or similar organizations have accessibility guidelines somewhere? So organizations may include guidelines or references. As far as web content accessibility goes, the WCAG is the main set of guidelines. But there are other organizations that tend to publish their own suggestions. So one organization is called WebAIM. Let me type that into chat. And I think it's webaim.org, but they are an organization that provides lots of suggestions and recommendations related to accessibility. Katie had to sign off. All right, does anybody have any questions or other comments?
If you like, I could turn off the recording in case someone rather asks a question
Oh,
outside.
I have some other devices. So if people need to leave, feel free to leave. I do have some other devices out that I didn't show because I saw that I was running low on time. Let me let's do a little prices right on this guy. So this is called Glass House, GLASSOUSE. And so it looks like a pair of glasses, but without any lenses. And so let me demo this. I'll switch back Well, actually my webcam's still on. So here. So I can put these on over my existing glasses, and the top bar is a sensor that I can connect to my laptop, and as I move my head, it would move the cursor on the screen. And again, if I hovered held my head in a particular location for long enough, it could select an object. And so how much do you think these glasses cost? Bye, Grace. Any ideas? $600 from Ryan. $40 from Tamiko. Yeah, there's not a lot to them, Tamiko. They're made out of plastic. The side arms are plastic. So the cost of these glasses in 2001 was $585.77. So it looks like Ryan won. All right. Does questions? Oh, no, you went over. That's right. It's closest without going over. Sorry, Ryan. Tamiko won with $40. Yes. Anyone have any questions, thoughts?
Would you like me to stop the recording?
Sure.